I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to know to understand property markets so you can pick the right market that's going to grow 10 times fold in the next 10 years. This is something that only 0.4% of Australian investors know about, and they're the people that have 3 or more investment properties. So I'm going to reveal to you the top 5 fundamentals that you need to look out for, that how to identify a hotspot. These are fundamentals that are pretty basic, but some of these you would have heard of, but majority of them, the top 3, I will say you never heard of or you never take in consideration, because this is something that doesn't get spoken about, doesn't get shared about. You don't hear it on podcasts, you don't see it or read, you haven't read it in any books or any other magazines. This is something that I'm going to reveal to you that we use here at Fresh Start Advisory, and why our clients are so successful when it comes to building a property portfolio. Do you want to build a property portfolio 10 times faster than the average Australian? Then I'm guessing you are, because if you're here watching this video, you're looking to grow, you're looking for new capabilities, you're looking to build a property portfolio. It's going to give you the financial backing so you can live life on your terms and not be a victim to society. Unfortunately, in today's society, we have inflation growing faster than wages. People are getting destroyed by the cost of living is just going up rapidly. And unfortunately, we don't get taught financial literacy at school. We don't get taught how to build assets and have our money working for us. We don't understand about good debt or bad debt, which I'm going to teach you later on in these videos and explain to you what you need to know so you can outbeat inflation, so you can live life on your terms and not be a victim to society. By the way, my name is Frank Ambezi. I'm the co-founder of Fresh Start Advisory, and I started Fresh Start Advisory because I got burned by one of these property firms selling off the plan apartments, townhouses in the Melbourne Metro CBD. I lost a lot of money. My property fell under market value, $60,000. I had to come up with that money, and I had to put that money down. That didn't go towards my property. It was pretty much money that just went down the drain. The property hasn't even grown in value, and it's costing me $10,000 to hold the property after all expenses have been paid. Now, this is something that I truly want to inspire and help people by helping them build a property portfolio that is scalable, that won't affect their lifestyle, that will put money in their pocket from day dot, but most importantly, that won't affect their lifestyle from day one. This is something that I'm trying to help people with so they can take action and not be a victim to society. You're probably out there and maybe you have some family members that are not invested in property. Maybe your parents haven't invested at all in their life, and they're still working, and they're maybe getting closer to that retirement age, and they still haven't got enough in super. And what's going to happen when they get to that age and they haven't got enough in super? What, are they going to continue to work? It's a good question. And this is something where if we can back ourselves and actually start investing for the future, but most importantly for our families, you will live life with less problems and more calmness. And that's my job. So let's get into it and let me explain to you what we need to know. So the top 5 ways how to identify a hotspot. Very important, and I'm going to go deep on this. Some of these things you've probably heard about, very basic, but then there's going to be towards the end where you probably never thought of what you need to know to identify a hotspot. Number 1, infrastructure projects. Pretty simple, but very impactful. This is probably one of the big pieces of the puzzle. You need to understand what is getting implemented in a region. Now, as you can see, there's a map here I've put here, and there's millions, if not billions of dollars getting spent in some states and territories. But whereabouts? This is where you want to look at state, federal, and council level reports. This is something where you can see a budget report from the federal level, a state level, council level, and you can see what is going on in these markets. This gives you an understanding, okay, there's infrastructure projects getting spent. There's something happening in this economy. There's changing here. Now, these are some projects here I've listed here on the left-hand side. Now, if there's new schools, if there's new hospitals, if there's new port upgrades or secondary airports, bridges, renewable energy farms, etc. getting built into an LGA, which is a local government area, or let's just say a region, there's something happening there. There's a plan of attack that they're wanting to do to make this a more prosperous location for people to live in. They're attracting people. There's jobs getting created. And this is something that has an effect on the property market significantly. Looking out for this is something that you need to know to build a successful portfolio. Number 2, economic drivers. I can't rant enough about this because it's super important. Now, let's say we're looking at a region to invest in, and you're looking for one of your investment properties, and that location that you're investing in, it's got 5 economic drivers. I like to have a minimum of 5 economic drivers. Why? Because if you have 5 economic drivers, it's not reluctant on just 1 or 2 industries. You don't want to be investing in a mining town or maybe just an agricultural town that this is reluctant on those 2 or 1 or 2 industries. You want a multitude. The more, the better. So let's hypothetically say you look at this region, and the region is driven by healthcare, it's driven by retail, professional industries, construction, and then food and food services. Now, that's 5 industries. Now, that's something that's driving that market. Then what we want to do is, let's say this market is in Queensland. We're looking at that average, and then we're going to look at the Queensland average for these 5 industries that are driving this market that we're looking to invest in. When we're looking at it, we're going to see if it's greater than the state average. And if it is greater than the state average, you can see that this is a strong market. Let's say we go to our second location we're investing in for our second investment property, and that market is driven by education, manufacturing, public administration, support services, transportation. This market's getting driven by different economic drivers, and it's great. And let's say it's greater than that state average. Now, if there's more, that's the merrier. But why do we do this? Because if there is a downturn in the market, okay, like COVID, for example, there was industries that were affected. And if there is industries that are really reliant on certain individual economic drivers, and all of them collapsed during a recession or something that happened to the economy like COVID or maybe the GFC, those property markets will have an effect. So this is something that you're backing yourself and you're minimizing your risk. Number 3, how to purchase the best investment property in a location. Due diligence is key. And this is from a ground level. Okay, so we've found the property. The number one thing you want to start off first is having an independent property inspector inspecting your property. Someone that has no ties or no strings attached with the person selling the property. And maybe it's a property manager from a different company that you're using. Maybe it's a independent pest and building specialist that's just inspecting the property for you. Getting an understanding, getting video walkthroughs if you can't be there, photos, a report, and getting any list of items that need to be repaired so the property is up to scratch and it's going to be able to rent out right away and get a tenant. Things like easements you need to look out for. We don't want an easement on the property because if you want to develop on the property, you're going to have restrictions. Caveats, making sure there's no caveats on the contract, getting your solicitor to look over those contracts. Doing zoning checks. Flood zone, bushfire zone, flight path zone, sewage lines, noise corridors, etc. The list goes on. This is something important, minimizing that risk. Insurance policy fees. Now, your property might be all out of the flood zone, bushfire zone, etc. But let's check the policy fees on when it comes to insurance, because there might be a high risk area still. Maybe it's a cyclone area, and that's something that you've got to take in consideration. If so, that means that property is going to get outstripped from your cash flow, because if your insurance fees are through the roof, your cash flow is going to get destroyed. We don't want that. We want a property that's cash flow positive, and that's something that you've got to take in consideration. In residential zoning, planning ahead. Now, you might not have a plan to say, you know what, I'm not going to develop on this property. But if you start your journey now and then 5-10 years down the track, you've already got a multitude of properties, you might decide to turn that property into a development site. Making sure you got the right zoning, because you in the future you're going to grow. Going down this route of investing, you're going to grow. Make sure you get a residential zoning that is suitable, tailored to the goal and structure that you are picking. School catchment zones, super important. We want to be close to those, the top end schools in that region. Development, subdivision, granny flat potential, something that you want to look out for as well. Always having different options, so you're not just stuck with one sort of asset that you can't manufacture or force appreciate. your equity position. Red flags on the contract, something to keep an eye out for. Pest and building reports, making sure you're getting your pest and building inspected, inspect the property. Now, how many renters versus homeowners in the suburb level, and then we want to go to a street level. And what I mean by that, we want less renters or less landlords in a particular street and more owner occupiers living in a street. Do you know why? Because owner occupiers, renovate their property, they upkeep their front garden, and they look after their properties. I'm not saying a landlord doesn't, and I'm not saying you do, but I'm saying that an owner occupier takes more care. They give that owner occupier a feel, and those properties are worth just that bit more, and it makes the street look pretty, and it increases the value of your property. That's something that's very important. Now, the property, we don't want it to be on a main road or a connecting road. Very simple. That will take a lot of the value of your property out. And then we want to make sure it's on a public housing suburb. But it might be in a public housing suburb, but we've got to make sure it's not nowhere near the streets or near the rough end part of town. Because look, a lot of places may have public housing. That's okay. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. There's some places in Melbourne, like your Flemingtons and Newmarket. But that's okay. The property market has done well in there in the past. And so we just got to look out for the good pockets and stay away from the bad pockets. Number 4, this is something that you don't hear often, and you probably never heard about it before. And it's called the 5-year boom window. Now what I'm going to reveal to you is something that's super important. Something that not many people speak about. And here we go. And I'm going to talk about this right now, because this is something that's going to blow your mind away. There's 2 boom phases per an LGA. So an LGA is your council area. So where you live, there's a council that's looking after that city. Now, every 15 to say 20 years, that market will have 2 boom cycles. And during that boom cycle, a boom cycle will last for 5 years, maybe a bit more. But during those 5 years, there's consistent growth. There's a double-digit growth for 5 years. Now, after that 5 years, there's a slowdown in the market. And during that slowdown, it can go sideways or it can go downwards. And you don't want to be getting, you don't want to invest, in the year 4 or 5 of that boom phase. You want to be in the first year alone. Now, it's hard to time the market. We don't have a crystal ball. But if we can make a great informed decision and look at, some analysis tools that's going to help you, that means you're going to outbeat the competition. You're going to accelerate your property portfolio. And so it's super important, because if you get in at the wrong time, it can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. So let me show you some demonstrations. Frankston, 40 kilometers southeast of Melbourne, had a 5-year boom window from 2013 to 17, 78% capital growth. Now, as you can see from 2013, that's the year you want to be getting in, that 13, 14 year. Now, this is from an LGA level. Now, and which I mean the whole council area of Frankston. Now, look at this, double-digit growth right on throughout. Now, 2017 was a time you probably want to get out of that. 2017 is when the market started to slow down. You got in at the very beginning of this market. You rode the wave of capital growth. You took advantage of the equity. You released it, and you went out there and you purchased more property. If you got in at 2016-17, look at the market, what it does, and look at the graph here. Doesn't lie. You see a downwards trend, and that's something that you do not want to be getting in at the top of the market and riding that downward wave. You want to be riding the wave from the beginning at the top all the way from the bottom to the top. And so the market did have a downwards trending, but now it started its second growth phase, and it's 28%, and it's going to continue for this market. GIMPY. Okay, this is a great market to show you that, Gympie is 170 kilometers north of Brisbane, just past the Sunshine Coast. It's a 5-year boom phase that it's just started in 2020, and it's going to continue. Now, if we look at this, it's been trending sideways since 2012. Now, when it's hit 2020, we're just seeing a massive shot of growth. And why? Gympie's got a lot of infrastructure projects. There's a lot of things happening. There's a strategic plan put in place to bring in people and attract them to this, this beautiful location Why? There's a lot of things happening. New schools, universities, and hospital upgrade, and there's a lot of things going on. So what's happening is it's changing the demographics of people as well. Internal migration, a lot of people are moving there. But look, I don't want to touch on that too much, but you can see this is a great market. Now, we're in 2022, and I don't want people to jump into this market right now, because this is something that you've missed out already in the first 2 years of massive growth, and it's got another 3 years left in it, but you don't want to be costing yourself and getting in there too late. Tasmania, Hobart, from 2012 to 2018, a 66% capital growth. This is from a region, LGA level. Look at this. Now, you wouldn't want to be getting in from 2016 onwards, because look at this. If we look at the news articles back in 2016, I recall that they were talking about Hobart was on fire and it was growing exponentially. What happened was a lot of people were getting in at 2016 to 17. After that point in time, you see a downwards trend here, and then of course it's shot up again. That's its second growth phase, and this is my point. We want to make sure we're getting in at the bottom and making sure we're riding that wave. Property is a long-term game. We don't get in at the bottom and sell at the top. We get in, we stay in, and we use that equity, releasing it and buying more property after property. Number 5, which leads me to my last point, is what 99.6% of Australian investors or property investors don't know. Okay? When you're diversifying your portfolio, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And a lot of people do. And we don't want to, because we want to minimize the risk. And so by purchasing properties in different states and territories, they have different economic drivers, and they have things that are, starting their growth phases at all different times. So when we're researching, like I said, with economic drivers in certain LGAs, we want to make sure every property, that market that we're getting into for our investment property, have got all different economic drivers, all mixtures. And doing so, that's going to help and minimize your risk. Very important. As well, land tax concession laws. Every state and territory have different land tax concession laws. Very important. Why? Because if you have all our properties in one state or territory, your land tax is going to go through the roof. It's going to eat out your cash flow. Very important. Market cycles and growth phases. We want to make sure we're in the right growth phase and cycle. That's going to help us and improve our property portfolio, and we're taking advantage of that capital growth, that 5-year window that I've spoken about. Now, investing in different markets and diversifying is tax advantages as well, and we want to make sure we're getting to markets where we can use depreciation and buying in good quality properties that have depreciation, that have been built, in the last 10 or 20 years. I don't believe in building off the plan. I purchase properties that are in scarce locations. You can't knock down a farm and build multiple properties, but we're purchasing property in scarce locations. This is super important. Last thing it leads me to is, increasing your wealth position. These properties, this strategy that we're following right here now is going to increase your wealth position, because if you're timing the market, you're buying in with different economic drivers, you're investing in different LGAs and different states and territories, you're going to lower your land tax. And this is super important. It's going to minimize your tax, and so it's going to help you build wealth faster. So this is something that we've spoken about, which you've probably never heard about. And hopefully you got some value from this. I'm sure you did. And if you want to learn more and you want to get in touch, you want to know more about what we do and how we can help you, there's details where you can enter down below. You will get access to more videos, content, which is going to help you and improve you with your financial IQ when it comes to property investing. I'm out here to inspire people and educate them so they understand more about property investing. And this is something that's just the tip of the iceberg, and we've got more to show you. Click the link, fill in your details, get access to more resources that we've got available. This is going to help you become the best property investor that you can possibly be. You want to be in the top 0.4% of Australian investors that have 3 or more investment properties. Okay. If you want to build a property portfolio that's 10 times faster than the average Australian, fill in your details. You've got nothing to lose. I've got nothing here to sell you. It's all for free. No lock-in contracts, no credit card fees, literally just value. You can take all the value that you get. These videos are for free, and then you can use them for your own self. But if you want to learn more, please click the link and get access to our free video center.